Big round of applause for Craig.
Hey, thanks Tom. Thanks for inviting me to come along and talk at your amazing workshop. It's amazing that you guys have all come together and here in Glasgow, and I just first of all want to welcome you to Glasgow and to Scotland. There's a lot happening in Scotland for space that you may watch the feedback. You may or may not know about, but if you go back about say 15 or so years, Glasgow didn't really have a space sector. We had some very good universities. You're in one of them, but we didn't really have any companies. And I remember I actually went to this university and I graduated and moved down south, like most of my fellow students that just graduated. Happened to start working in a space company called Surrey Satellite Technology Limited, which was pretty small at the time. You may not have heard of them, I'm not sure, but they basically pioneered the whole small sat kind of movement back in the day. So that was a long time ago. I was actually saying to someone I'm 50 next year, so I'm feeling quite old, but that was 1994. So small satellite revolution has been around for quite a long time. And it's only recently come to Scotland, and if you look at what's happening in Scotland, we now have not only great companies like Alba Orbital making pocket cubes, Clyde Space, Spire, Craft Prospect. I mean, I'm not going to start naming them all because then people get annoyed if I don't name them. But we also have launch. We've got rockets being built like 20 miles along the road in Cumbernauld. They're building rockets with Skyrora, and also in the north of Scotland with Orbex. We're going to be launching satellites from Scotland. We've got some great data like downstream data companies dotted all over the place, and there's a bit of a hub of them in Edinburgh. So we've come a long way from having pretty much no sector to having one of the most vibrant and dynamic space sectors in the world here in Scotland. So Alba Orbital being a huge part of that with what they're doing in very small satellites. I kind of when Tom asked me to do this, I thought, well, what I'm going to talk about, I thought one of the kind of interesting things is kind of to reflect back on a little bit on my journey, because Clyde Space started out, it was basically one of the first, if not the first, CubeSat, commercial kind of focused CubeSat company in the world. And when we started, CubeSats were basically, in a lot of places, it was a dirty word. Nobody liked the word CubeSat. In fact, I mean, I won't go into detail, but a very prominent agency for space in Europe actually told someone to never use the word CubeSat again. So this is back in the day when you're really fighting against ideas and the kind of the system that was set up for traditional space, large satellites that cost billions of euros, going to far-flung reaches of our solar system. That was what people wanted to do with space. And if you weren't doing that, you were doing telecom, geostationary satellites that cost hundreds of millions of euros. But when you started to try to say, look, we want to do something different, we want to use newer technologies and we want to put them in much smaller packages, people didn't want to know, and they dismissed it and says, well, you can't do that. And I've got a million stories I won't go into about the number of conversations I've had over the years trying to convince people. But what I believed in, and I think this is what you also are looking to do, is I believe that technology is moving so fast that what we can do today in a tiny package in a satellite will be different to what we can do in 5 years and from 10 years. And I've got stories from our first CubeSats that were getting launched. For example, we put a 2 megabit per second S-band downlink on a satellite, and everyone's like, wow, 2 megabits per second, that's awesome. Within about 3 years, we were at 300 megabits per second on a satellite. Then we were up to 2 gigabits per second, and then recently you've seen a CubeSat that was transmitting like a laser optical link, and it was a terabit per second down to Earth. So the technology that we're able to put into these tiny packages is moving at such a fast rate that the focus, and I've seen companies that were also doing CubeSats at the time when we were starting out, have moved away and they're doing larger satellites, maybe 40, 50 kilos up to 100, whatever. But I have always had the belief that stick to making very small satellites as capable as possible so that we can apply them to as many applications as we can and solve a lot of the problems. I mean, we talk about sustainability. Launching lots of large satellites into orbit is going to be much more problematic than launching lots of very small satellites into orbit. The chance of collision is much less. They deorbit faster. There's all sorts of good reasons. Less materials are being used. There's so many good reasons to keep things small and agile and more effective in what they do. So don't let anyone tell you that this is not going to work, because it does. And the CubeSat world is proof of it, and pocket cubes are going to go exactly the same way. Another thing that I kind of thought of is collaboration. So when the CubeSat world first started out, everyone was working together. All the companies, all the universities were all trying to work together with a common goal, and that was what can we do with this tiny box in space? We kind of lost that when things became a bit more commercial, and a lot more commercial. Then your friends became your opposition, and you're all fighting to get a contract to do a mission. And it's inevitably going to happen. But what I would say to you is try and hold on to that collaborative environment that you have, and work together. If there's say we need a better radio, and you guys over there, you're the best at doing radios in this market, so maybe if you come up with a product, we could all use that kind of thing. You're working together to solve problems. I really urge you to continue to do that. And I guess my final point, and this is something I talk about quite a lot, just generally when I'm speaking, I'm on the board of the Satellite Applications Catapult, for example, and they're very good at looking at markets and how markets are developing, but also about innovation. And innovation is a word that's clearly important to you guys, because you're constantly innovating and trying to disrupt. But innovation is a word that gets used a lot, and it gets used wrong. For the incumbent space companies that we see in our countries, innovation means a small change to an existing system, and they will claim they're being innovative because they changed, the size of a solar panel or something. Innovation is not that. Innovation is something new, completely new. It's something that's disruptive. This is the way that the people used to do things, and now this is the way that we do things now, because somebody's innovated a solution that is better than before for whatever reason. It might be lower power or faster or whatever. But innovation is something that you should, I believe, just keep striving for. Keep striving to disrupt the norm. Try to do things differently. Try to find better ways of doing things. And it has to be used. If you're doing a PhD, it's the novel aspect of that. It's the same with business. And keep innovating, keep pushing the boundaries, keep disrupting, keep annoying the big companies with doing things better than they can with something much smaller. As I urge you to keep doing that. And I guess that's basically what I kind of wanted to say. I really wish you all the best with your missions. I hope you have great success. I hope this workshop is great, and it gives you opportunity to talk and cross-pollinate your ideas and forge relationships and go off and do great things together, and go and enjoy yourselves, and welcome to Glasgow. Thank you very much.